All right, Eddie Hearns. Wow. Passing the buck onto Dillian Whyte and Ukad while he answers questions about why he continually lets people who are suspected to be under the use to have been using performance enhancing drugs fight on his card. Let's talk about the interesting spin and buck passing that Eddie Hearn uses in this particular circumstance in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. And also I want to say special thank you to everybody that has joined the channel under the channel memberships, my Patreon community, live stream community. Make sure you come to OG Boxing Talk this Sunday morning, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time with myself, Blood Boxing, KQKC Boxing, Trap House Boxing, and Curtis Anderson. All right, man. Eddie Hearn, as you know, is allowing Dillian Whyte to fight Watch. This guy named, I always mess up his first name, but Watch, on the undercard of Anthony Joshua's fight rematch with Andy Ruiz. Now, the scandalous thing about that is that he's tested positive for the use of performance enhancing drugs in his last fight, that being Dillian Whyte. Right. I'm not tripping so much on the Povetkin fighting on the undercard. You know, we all know he's tested positive on multiple occasions for performance enhancing drugs. But Dillian Whyte specifically is the one that I find very interesting. Now, Dillian Whyte, Eddie Hearn rather, has been questioned about this. And listen to what he says. He says, I don't want to pass the buck. I say to him, Dillian Whyte, all the time, any chances of this coming out? Speaking of the B sample, is there any chance that these B samples are going to come out, Dillian Whyte? Right. And then he says, we keep pushing, we're pushing. Hopefully allowing Dillian Whyte to fight on this card will trigger Ukad into making a decision. But at the same time, he says, Ukad's already cleared him and BBOC has already cleared him. So there's no penalty anyway. So my question is, what are you waiting for exactly? Well, a couple things, not just what are you waiting for, Eddie? Like, what are you waiting for them to do? But I find it really interesting that he skips out on a couple things. First, and primarily, he absolves himself of any responsibility. When Dillian Whyte fought Oscar Rivas and he tested positive for D-ball the first in that fight for the A sample, Eddie Hearn could have stopped the fight. He's the promoter. He could have said, no, you've tested positive for performance enhancing drugs. I'm not going to let you fight until the B sample comes out because I don't want to risk the lives or I don't want to risk the life of Oscar Rivas, and I don't want to risk the good name of Matchroom Boxing. He could have just canceled the fight. That's one option he had. The other option is he could have said, look, let's call Oscar Rivas and tell Oscar Rivas that this is what happened. And unless you inform Oscar Rivas, who I also have a contract with and a duty to provide safe working environment for, unless you tell Oscar Rivas, I'm going to cancel the fight. He could have done either one of those. If you say, well, no, he couldn't have done it because he had a contract. He had to. Really? He had to? Okay, if he did, then why couldn't he ask him to inform Oscar Rivas in the second option? But regardless, he let him fight. Eddie Hearn made a decision to allow Dillian Whyte to fight Oscar Rivas without telling Oscar Rivas that this guy tested positive for performance enhancing drugs. Okay, so first thing he did, he absolved himself from any of that responsibility, putting that on Ukad, putting that on BBOC. This time now, he's also he's passing the buck. He's like, I don't want to pass the buck, while immediately passing the buck and saying, I'm asking Dillian Whyte all the time, Dillian, when is this going to come out? When is this going to come out? You know, when is it going to come out? When are you going to make a decision? You know, is there anything? I don't know. How about you fight on my card? Now, the fact that he says this, that he's going to, maybe if I let him fight, that will shame what is he trying to shame Ukad into testing a B sample that more than likely Dillian Whyte is in court with them, preventing them from testing? Now, that's just my assumption that that's the reason why, that they actually haven't tested it. And if they had tested it, maybe they'd have let that stuff out. But this whole thing just completely absolves, this statement completely absolves Eddie Hearn from any responsibility whatsoever, and actually makes it sound like he's trying to do the best for boxing. That he is allowing a guy, Dillian Whyte, to get into the ring under the cloud of performance-enhancing drug use because he is trying to push the issue through to resolution. Can you believe it? That is like me saying, hey, the cops are not treating this neighborhood right. They're not coming by and doing regular patrols in my neighborhood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break in my neighbor's house and steal what they have in hopes that if I steal enough, that the police will then come by and start paying more attention to this neighborhood. What sense does that make? Okay, I have I mean, that's a perfect example. You're just going to commit a crime until the police notice it and then say, hey, policeman, I was doing it because I wanted you to know that it was important for you to do your job. Hey, Ukad, I'm going to allow a guy that we don't know, we have not seen his B sample. The last drug test that he took for the Oscar Rivas fight said he tested positive. But what we're going to do is we're going to let him keep fighting and rub your nose in it until you have enough. Till you turn around and make a decision about it. But at the same time, he's saying, they've already made their decision. They haven't suspended him. So really, what are we waiting for? Which one is it, Eddie? Are you trying to push them to a decision, or has the decision already been made? Do you see what I mean? Eddie Hearn is just, he's the worst. He's the worst. And I've said this multiple times on video. I've said this on live stream. I don't know of a guy in boxing that's more crooked than Eddie Hearn. But Eddie Hearn, the sad thing is that there is, to a certain degree, progress in the world, right? Now, whether progress moving forward or moving at all is a good thing or bad thing in a particular instance, that's up for debate. However, if you give a guy a rope, he wants to be a cowboy, right? You give him an inch, they're going to take a mile. When you see somebody when one crook sees another crook get away with something, then that crook is going to try to get away with the same thing. And then he's going to eventually try to outdo him and get away with more. See, for me, that's what happens when, like, the WBC allows Alexander Povetkin to get away with not paying his purse money to Deontay Wilder when he tests positive for meldonium. When he tests positive for meldonium in a fight. So everybody knows the guy tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs, but they let him off on a technicality that, that it's, well, we don't really know. I'm a little confused about whether, he took it before or after it hit the banned substance list. So, we just don't know. So we're just going to let it slide because it's a little bit ambiguous. Ain't nothing ambiguous about the use of meldonium. Right now, the reason it is banned is because it is used to allow people to cheat and get an unfair advantage in a fight in which which utilizes hand-to-hand combat and on a all too frequent basis results in the death of other fighters. You know dang well that Alexander Povetkin did that. But you're okay with it because, pretty much you're looking for a reason to let him off is what you're doing. So after that happens, now, hey, Ukad, let's give him therapeutic use exemptions. Let's, we'll let you fight. Yeah, you give me a note and explain why there's D-ball in your system. And then from there, I will just allow you to go ahead and fight and just come back to me a little bit later on with a note and with your excuse. And then with your actual test. And if your actual test turns out positive, then I'll suspend you. But they're going to suspend you for a fight that you already had. It makes no sense. It is ridiculous. Eddie Hearn is taking boxing down that road, and I would highly suggest that we don't go down it any further. But with so many people enabling him and money being involved, I just can't see that happening. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out.